Bet the Board presents Stay Green. Stay Green is your first stop for all the metrics, matchups, and money-making opportunities at the track each race week. This is Stay Green, the NASCAR betting podcast. Here are your hosts, Todd Fuhrman and racing analyst Chris Werme.
Welcome into the Stay Green podcast, part of the Bet the Board podcast network. All things NASCAR, all the time. One playoff race down. One driver of the 22 has punched his ticket from the round of 16 into the round of 12, and plenty of drama and such in front of us this weekend as we go road course racing in upstate New York. I'm your host, Todd Fuhrman, joined as always by my esteemed colleague and co-host, professional NASCAR bettor Chris Werme. And Wormser, you are on remote this week, but the question that all of our listeners want to know, will you be back in the command center for practice, qualifying, and race day on Sunday?
Yes, I will be back. I am currently in northern Minnesota playing a little golf for my buddy's 40th, but heading back Friday night. I need to we take this seriously here, and to be away on a race weekend is off limits at this point, especially at this point in the season with all that unfolds. And Todd, we get a tire that falls off this week. Well, hopefully.
Theoretically, we get a tire that falls off. There is a lot of optimism about the NASCAR community, and we'll get into that in stage 2 when we break down the handicap and some of the drivers that we have identified. But for those folks who may be tuning into the Stay Green podcast for the very first time, we break this up much like a NASCAR race. It's all about 3 stages. Stage 1, a recap of what we saw last weekend, at this case, Super Speedway racing from Atlanta. Stage 2, a preview in depth of what we expect and the drivers to watch at Watkins Glen. And as we will continue to do throughout the course of the postseason until we crown a champion in your former backyard in Phoenix, Stage 3, all about a playoff reset if there's any opportunity for us to jump in. Unfortunately, our long shot bet at Chase Briscoe that we gave out as a best bet for a small nibble last week, number continues to drift, and as Murphy's Law would have it, he was the first driver out of the race last weekend. But all right, Atlanta, I mentioned at the top, Joey Logano wins and advances. Team Penske seems to come around when it matters most in the playoffs, but it's not just Team Penske in general. I mean, you look back, and we were ready to write off the Fords after, the first 6-8 races? Yep. Quietly, the Blue Oval has put 8 cars in the last 15 races into victory lane. It's Harrison Burton at Daytona, Chase Briscoe at Darlington, now Joey Logano at Atlanta. And Joey Logano was his victory, second in Atlanta, his second of the season, 34th of his career, vaults to 5th in the playoff standings. But most importantly, as we know this time of year, the win guarantees him a spot in the next round. Should we ever be surprised if the 22 decides in an even number year to go out there and decide, you know what, I need to win a championship?
Or win a race, just doing exactly what they need to do. And every time you count Joey Logano out, he's just not. He'll win a race. He'll figure something out, whether it's Penske, whether it's just Ford in general, or just that 22 team. Unbelievable. And now they get to kind of, I don't want to say relax, but hey, these next couple of weeks, go out there, have some solid finishes, keep the confidence going, and they're moving on. So congrats to that 22 team.
Yeah, you don't have the luxury of looking that far ahead when you win a race in the round of 16, but Joey Logano didn't exactly have much of a cushion, and trust me, there are plenty of drivers that a lot of people see as favorites or at favorites one point in the season that find themselves in a little bit of jeopardy over the next 2 weeks. No surprise here, the playoff drivers claim 9 of the top 10 spots in Atlanta. When we look, Kyle Larson, he may never want to go back to Atlanta, let alone race a Super Speedway ever again, given how the 5 continues to struggle. But you look at Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, William Byron, the familiar names continue to get some of those good finishes, put themselves in a good spot. But any major takeaways that you saw at Atlanta that you think are applicable going forward, other than maybe Daniel Suarez letting a glorious opportunity slip through his fingers to get a win? Because if he doesn't race well at Watkins Glen this weekend, Bristol has not exactly been kind to the 99.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a lot we can take away from this, unless you just want to fade Kyle Larson and every time there's a Super Speedway race. That
feels like a profitable strategy. I mean, what's he done at Atlanta? Has he finished inside the top 30 once under this current configuration?
Yeah, it's just been a brutal place for him. And the field kind of needs him to struggle. I think he's shown kind of the most speed, and he doesn't shoot himself in the foot, which he's done multiple times. He's definitely going to be there. So it just goes to show you, Denny being just 2 up on the cut line. He's been someone all year that we've considered to be a threat to not only win races, but the championship. And it's just very fragile. You can even be conservative and end up being caught up in something like Denny did. And this playoff format you just have to be consistent. And if you're not, you will find yourself like the 11 could find himself this week, where they're just trying to pick up points. Like, why don't you go win races? Go out.
Well, look, I mean, the 11 said he came in with a strategy that he outlined on Actions Detrimental this week and talked about how he just wanted to stay out of the big one. They'd done their calculations, and if there was a big one, may have had a chance to pick up some easy spots. As far as Kyle Larson, though, Worm, I knew it was bad, and as I pull up his finishes at Atlanta over the last 2 years in the next-gen car, March 19th, 2023, finished 31st after starting 9th. July 9th, 2023, finished 36th after starting 8th. February 25th, earlier this year, finished 32nd after starting 5th. And he followed that up with his worst finish to date, 37th after starting 6th. So, yeah, maybe the 5 hopes that they can move the Atlanta race, and it somehow overlaps with the Indianapolis 500. So if he has to miss a start, he's not.
Oh, yeah, that'll never happen, but that would be amazing.
So, yeah, Atlanta officially in the rear view. Again, we'll have another super speedway race at Talladega in the round of 12, round of 8. I don't know. I don't have the whole schedule in front of me. I think it's the round of 8.
Yep.
Round of 12. That's right, round of 12. But again, a very unpredictable form of racing, and credit to Joey Logano. Finds a way to drive into victory lane and secure passage into the round of 12. You can follow Chris on social media at ChrisWerme15. You can follow me there as well at Todd Fuhrman, but most importantly, for all things Bet the Board related, for your college football, NFL, and NASCAR needs this time of year, you can follow the podcast at Bet the Board Pod. And Wormser, as we go to stage 2, we look at our Watkins Glen preview. 90-lap road course in upstate New York, race differently. At least that's the initial expectation that we have, given all the information that's been circulated from drivers, race teams, and Goodyear. Stage lengths divvied up into 20-lap stage 1, 20-lap stage 2, 50-lap stage 3. 220.5 miles configuration. Good luck trying to figure out exactly what the mileage is in the configuration, because you go to 16 different sites, you get 16 different nuggets of information. But it's all about the tire compound, and we're led to believe that we could find tires that could fall off upwards of 4 to 6 seconds a run. We've been sold this bill of goods by NASCAR and Goodyear before. Should we go in optimistic? Should we go in, all right, I want to see this on full display? The good thing is we'll have an elongated practice session to get a better indication.
I think that's the key, is the practice will tell a lot, obviously, but having a longer session, what does happen if someone can do a 10-lap run in practice? Because typically when you have a 20-minute practice, you might get 4 or 5 laps, one adjustment, and that's kind of it on road courses. So to see someone maybe go out there and run some consecutive laps, see if the fall off, if there's certain setups that are better to kind of that'll hang on longer. In the past, when you watch practice at road courses, it's like, hey, is the car capable of laying down a lap? Can you qualify in the top 5? Can you and then you go out there and you could stay out front. Denny said after, I think he qualified quite well last year. I think he pulled it and he wasn't able to lead lap 1. He goes, that was the race. You weren't going to, after that, I think McDowell went out there and led lap 1, and Byron kind of shuffled in behind him and was able to win the race. But those guys were just kind of, Denny said the race was over, and we're hoping that's not.
It's like watching an F1 race at Monaco. If you can't get to the lead at the end of lap 1, you may as well just get in line for the procession. Hope you have clean pit stops, and the path to victory is yours.
Yeah, we're certainly hoping that it doesn't end up like the Monaco Grand Prix. I would love to see a bunch of strategy where, maybe guys don't undercut the stage because they're worried about that fall off, where those extra 2 or 3 laps actually matter at the end of a run. So I'm hoping for that. But, what we've seen in the past, even at places like Darlington, where we see a lot of fall off, the fall off's uniform. So even though there's fall off, everyone's falling off at the same pace or the same rate, and you still get this very little passing like we had at Darlington. So even though there's fall off, we need there to be lap time variance within cars. We don't want them all to fall off 0.2 a lap. That's
called Richmond.
That would be Richmond. That would be another conveyor belt. And we don't want to see that. We want to see some cars that are good on the short run and that fall off more. And we want to see cars that are good over the long run. And that way we can see hopefully some more passing than we've seen in the past.
What do we make of the three drivers before we get into drivers in general? The three drivers that tested here: Tyler Reddick from the Toyota camp, Austin Cindric from the Ford camp, and Daniel Suarez from the Chevrolet camp. All drivers that are semi-accomplished when it comes to the road course discipline.
I think this is a huge advantage. I think it's important to at least know where the car is headed and make anticipatory changes. You know, you want to stay ahead of the track and you want to stay ahead of this fall off. So I do think that this is one place where they might unload slightly better. And that's just being ahead one adjustment. And whenever you can start the weekend in the NASCAR playoffs, ahead one adjustment, that's an advantage. So I do think track position's obviously going to be important. So if these cars are able to unload a little bit better, they make less adjustments, maybe they have a chance to go longer runs versus just kind of these short runs. And I think it's an advantage for him.
When we start to talk about some of the drivers, I don't think it'll surprise anybody when we highlight Tier 1. Kyle Larson, widely available, right around a price tag of 5-1. As far as his current form is concerned, 3 top 7 finishes over his last 6 races, just 1 win over his last 11. But when we begin to dig into Watkins Glen, he's won in 2 of his last 3 trips here and has started inside the top 10 in 8 straight races. So he's been the model of consistency starting up front. And when we look at some of his next-gen stats, 8th best average finish during the next-gen era, 6th best total speed rating, 5th best driver rating, 4th best average running position. But 5 to me, Worm, sounds like an awfully short price.
It's so short. And fall off, unless it's a place like Homestead or Darlington, I think hurts Kyle Larson. And there's so many unknowns this week. At this point, you better trust the driver's history on road courses, and you better trust them with fall off. And then you better have a price that matches both of those things. Right now, 5-1 is just too short. Could Kyle Larson go out here and have a great race? Could he win? Absolutely. But there's no reason in taking this price. I think he's going to, he could shorten up a little bit. But I also think there's some guys that are kind of have a little bit higher odds that could be, that I'll have my eye on a little bit more than a short price in Kyle Larson.
Shane Van Gisbergen, we know that he will be a full-time Cup regular next season. You can see the respect he commands in the betting market right now. Chicago street course, look, he was 10-1 when those odds opened, but we know the street course discipline a little bit different than road courses. Went out there, dominated practice, went off at right around, 3-2 if memory serves me correct. He'll make his first trip to Watkins Glen in the Cup Series. He's dominated road courses so far in the Xfinity Series, but it's not apples to apples by any stretch of the imagination when you win at Portland, Sonoma, and the Chicago Street. Again, another driver. I understand books trying to protect some of the liability that can accumulate here, but this is a guy that I want no part of at 6-1 or 7-1 like he's currently priced.
Again, same thing, but he's also a guy that if he does look great in practice, I'm okay backing him at 4 or 5-1 if he looks good. But I just think that there's, more upside to wait till after practice, and qualifying, because if you start deep and, so many things have to go right. And then there's also other drivers that might be points racing or stage racing. It's just, there's so many unknowns. Taking a short price at this point in the week, I think is absurd. And even though SVG could be really good, I just think this is not with the unknown of the tire fall off, this is not the time to be backing him.
William Byron priced right around 7-1, give or take a little bit. When we look at Byron, a pair of top 10s over his last 4 races, still searching for his first win since Martinsville. I know it's been a broken record. You look at his season in a nutshell: 7 top 3s, 8 top 5s, 14 top 10s. And when we begin to dissect his Watkins Glen performances, started from inside the top 4 in 3 of the last 4 trips here. Won last summer and came home 22nd in the first next-gen race. 7th best average finish during the next-gen era. 4th best driver rating. 6th best average running position. HMS in general on road courses with tire fall-off provides a unique wrinkle or variable as we try to assess the 24's merits, at least as a pre-week option.
Yeah, we haven't... We just haven't seen the same kind of stuff out of him. I think even when he was running consistently at Darlington, still got caught up in something and didn't end up with a great finish. Obviously, he's good here. I did have kind of a buy price at like that 12-1 range if we were to get that when he opened. Seeing him open at anywhere from 6 to 8-1, I think it's still too short for someone that just hasn't performed. I think he is running the 17 to this week for Hendrick in the Xfinity race. I think that's very helpful. He did that last year as well. He was able to kind of parlay that into a victory in the Cup Series. I do think it's an advantage to be running but still at this, 6 to 8 to 1 price. Like I said, I like them at 12, but we didn't see that. We could see it maybe after practice and qualifying, but we'll have to see how he looks in practice.
Well, if you're not interested in Byron at 8 to 1, I can't imagine his teammate is that much more an attractive proposition at 8 to 1. That teammate, of course, being Chase Elliott, who's finished 11th or better in 5 out of his last 7 races, but no finish better than 8th during that span. Again, model of consistency, just hasn't shown a ton of race-winning speed. His last top 5 came back at Iowa and only 4 podium finishes so far this season. When you look at how he's done at Watkins Glen, finished 15th here last year, ended a streak of 4 straight finishes, 4th or better. That included back-to-back victories in 18 and 19. We know these cars handle differently on road courses in the next-gen era than the older generation. As far as his next-gen stats, 9th best total speed during the next-gen era, 7th best drive rating, 8th best average running position. But again, a number extremely short, and we just haven't seen the 9 car go out there and show that he can dominate and dust the field.
Yeah, I'm just going to be a broken record here. This is just too short at this point in the week. Now, another guy that if he unloads well, gosh, we used to beg to get 4 or 5 to 1 on this guy in a road course. So we know that
different
he's capable.
Times, different cars, my friend.
Yeah, we know he's capable, but with these cars and track position just being so important in the past, and he hasn't qualified particularly well. I think he's had good cars, but he hasn't had great cars. And, I think that the Hendrick guys, I plan on them unloading fast, but will they be good over the long run? That's where we've seen some of the Wiley vets typically that have run well here in the past when there was tire fall off have been really good. Again, just too short on Chase at this point.
And typically we associate road course racing with Tyler Reddick and what we've seen in the past. His price 7.5, 8 to 1-ish. Definition of the model of consistency this year and rightful winner of the regular season championship. Over his last 10 races, Daytona was the only time he found himself on the outside of the top 10. Season by the numbers, 7 podium finishes, 11 top 5s, and 19 top 10s. That's a 70% strike rate for the 45 in terms of top 10s. We look at what he's done at Watkins Glen. 3 straight top 10 finishes, but nothing better than 7th. Started both next-gen races inside the top 10. 4th best average finish during the next-gen era, 10th best total speed, 9th best drive rating, 9th best average running position. But I have a hunch that you're going to repeat yourself like you've done so far with the other Tier 1 drivers before we move into Tier 2.
I will say this would be my favorite price of all of the guys that we've discussed. They're doing everything right. They unload fast. They put together complete weekends. And this, I think that there's not only speed, clearly he's good on road courses. I also think that when it comes to road course talent, I would say he's been a cut above the drivers that we just talked about, where if there is this fall off and you do have to horse the car a little bit more, I trust Tyler Reddick over a long run than I would some of those other Hendrick drivers. So I know that there was some sharp action at that 8 to 1 price. Some guys that were kind of excited to see that. So if you do like Tyler Reddick this week, he is a guy that could shorten up, 3.5 or 4 to 1 if he looks really good in practice. So I don't hate this one as much as I did some of the others. So I expect the 45 to just run a really consistent race and kind of be there. And if you're there at the end, who knows what can happen.
How do you feel about Tyler Reddick when it comes to high tire wear? Does it buoy his chances? Does it dissuade you a little bit, or does nothing really change?
I will say we haven't seen him run a road course race where he's seen a lot of tire fall off, and so whenever he's run well, he's qualified up front and he's kind of stayed there all day long. The days of driving through the field on road courses, we just haven't seen. So I don't mind Tyler Reddick when it comes to tire fall off. We just haven't seen him prove it on a road course. And that's everybody. I guess you could say that for everybody with this car. And Tyler Reddick has had success in this new car. So, that's a good question. I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked either way. With Tyler Reddick.
I think it's a fair assessment. You have to come in open-minded with these guys. And unless you have strong convictions early in the week, no reason to tie up your money doing guesswork with so many unknowns. When we start to get into Tier 2, it'll start with a Toyota. Christopher Bell, current form, top 6 in 5 of the last 6 races. The only outlier there, 35th at Michigan. When we look at his average finish, better than 12th over his last 14 races. As far as his season stats, 10 top 5s amongst the best in the series. When we talk about Christopher Bell at Watkins Glen, though, still looking to lead his first lap here. Did finish 3rd here a season ago and 8th the year before, despite starting that race 38th.
Yeah.
Came home 7th in the final race of the old generation car. And you look at some of these underlying numbers suggest that 20 could be quite formidable. Second best average finish during the next gen era, third best total speed ranking, number 3 in driver rating, and number 3 average running position. We've seen Christopher Bell go out there and do before on road courses. A little bit of an interesting price tag here when we begin to look at the 20 and his current price anywhere from 10 to 1 on the low end, upwards of 12.
Yeah, I don't hate this 12 to 1 on Chris Bell. You know, he's been great on high tire wear tracks. He's been good on road courses. And I think that if tire wear matters, and this is something that we've seen out of the 20 team and the 11 team, they are willing to run 2 or 3 more laps on their tires. We've seen it at Darlington. We've seen it at Richmond. And then they're pitting 2 or 3 laps later. Yeah, they're losing a lot of time on those final 2 laps that they're running, or 3 laps. But then they have a full fuel run, or a run to the next caution, where they're faster the entire time. And if they feel comfortable with their car hanging on, I think we saw it with Chris Bell earlier this year at COTA. That's what he did. That's how he was able to almost catch William Byron. If there is tire wear, look out for Chris Bell and this 20 team to take a chance, stay out a little longer, and work their way up through the field. If that is the case, you know, be wary when you're live betting, because if he's staying long, he's going to drop back. He could drop from, let's just say, 3rd back to 7th or 8th place. But on it, if it stays green, he's going to work his way up to the field, and, you know, kind of like the Kevin Harvick always wanted to be aggressive at the end of runs. So whenever have a chance, I just want fresher tires so I can be aggressive. I think Chris Bell and the 20 team have done this, and I think Denny Hamlin and the 11 team have done it as well.
When we look at Chris Bell, Ty Gibbs has quietly improved his overall skill set as a road course racer. But one of the more polarizing drivers this week, not necessarily in terms of sharp guys' opinions, but the way he's being priced. 2 of the most prominent books out here in the desert that I kind of use as a litmus test. One of them has Ty Gibbs at 14 to 1. That's come down actually from where he opened. And another prominent book has him in the single digits at 9.5 to 1. So could have made the case that maybe he should have been a fringe tier 1 guy. Current form-wise, I mean, pair of top 5s over his last 4 races. Finished 3rd on the Chicago street course, finished 3rd at COTA, wrecked out early at Sonoma. And he really only had 1 race at Watkins Glen as a full-time Cup Series regular, and he finished 5th here last year, registering a driver rating of 114. Look, the 54 hasn't put it all together to win races just yet, but again, continues to be someone that at least is worth discussion, albeit maybe at shorter prices now that the market's corrected itself a touch.
I think that 16 to 1 opening price on him was a good price if you're able to grab that. I think we're kind of getting that, you know, anywhere from 10 to 1 to 14 to 1 is probably a pretty fair value for this 54. Could he go out there and unload quick? Yeah. I don't think you're going to see like a 5 or 6 to 1 out of him. I still think you'll see 8 to 1 if he's fast. So I think you're from a market standpoint, market entry is going to be important here. If you got the 16, or if you think he's going to qualify well, maybe grab that 14 number. Once you're getting below there, I don't know that you're grabbing much value from Ty. I just can't see him closing the favorite. So you might as well wait. Again, just another guy that I am comfortable laying a little bit shorter price if he looks good on a road course. But we also haven't seen him drive up and take the lead from anybody. So until he does that, it's hard for me to back him even in that 10 to 1, 12 to 1 price range. But 16, if you grab that was a good start to the week.
Another pair of drivers priced at 16 to 1, road course specialist, AJ Allmendinger and Michael McDowell. When we look at Dinger, I mean, you can make the legitimate case that this is his best road course of all of them in the Cup Series. 10 straight races here. He's earned a top 10 starting position, top 10 finishes in 4 of his last 5 races here. Came home 4th last year and 2nd the year before. When we look at next-gen stats, he is the gold standard, albeit with just 2 data points. Best average finish during the next-gen era of 3rd, number 2 in total speed rankings during the next-gen era, number 1 in driver rating, number 1 in average running position. And then, of course, there's Michael McDowell. You mentioned kind of at the top, he ran real well here in terms of qualifying, thought he was going to be very much in the mix to win this race. And his underlying number significantly better than what he's been able to accumulate for finishes thus far. But AJ Allmendinger, Michael McDowell at their current price tags of 16 to 1.
Yeah, I have to say that of all the bets that all the prices we've talked about, I would say AJ Allmendinger at 16 to 1 is the best outright price we have seen. I said earlier in the show that there's 2 things that you have to be aware of when making bets at this point in the week. You have to trust your driver on high tire wear. We are anticipating that. Whether it happens or not, I'm not quite sure, but you better be prepared for it if that's the case. AJ Allmendinger is phenomenal at high tire wear tracks. I think anytime he's good at Homestead, he's good at Darlington, and he's phenomenal here on this track as well. So, and let's just say there is, gosh, I'd love to say 4 seconds of fall off. I think that would be amazing. Who do you want driving a car that's losing grip? I want AJ Allmendinger, especially when you're talking about a 2-win price. AJ is not my favorite matchup driver. He is certainly my favorite, top 3 or win price, but just because it's all or nothing for this guy. But he does check off those 2 boxes. He's good at high tire wear tracks, and he's a good road course racer. And he's also raced here when there was high tire wear. So I like Dinger's price. Michael McDowell just hasn't been the same guy on road courses for me this year. Last year, it seemed like, it's almost like that speed is transferred to qualifying at Daytona, because, man, that's impressive stuff that he's done this year. But this road course stuff hasn't been quite the same. We saw him go up there and lead laps in the past. Last year, we have not seen that this year out of him. So just wait and see with Michael McDowell. Gosh, I think if those guys were matched up head to head in a matchup, if that's out there, I think I would take Dinger. I think that market's probably going to move his way a little bit, but I guess I still like Dinger's outright price more than I like the matchup. And I don't know, McDowell, I just desire more from him this year. I expected him to be a little bit better on these road courses.
It's interesting, and I should have brought this up with SVG, and we talked about him earlier on in the show, and now with AJ. AJ will be driving the 13, SVG in the 16, both branded as Cowlig racing cars. So something to keep in mind when you look at some of the prices that are out there. Cowlig, as we record on Wednesday night, $1.40 favorite for the better finish than 2311 Racing. Something interesting to think about in that particular regard. As we get into Tier 3, we have some playoff drivers and non-playoff drivers all jumbled together. Chris Buescher, we look at his price right around 20-1, 25-1 if you do shop around. Buescher's finished 10th or better in 12 of the last 14 road/street races, including a streak of 8 straight at one point. And his underlying numbers in terms of what he's done at Watkins Glen, pretty good. 5th best finish, average finish, I should say, during the next gen era. 4th best total speed ranking, 8th best drive rating, 7th best average running position. Then there's the Marty Party Wormser, 20-1, 25-1. You want to talk about current form not being something to write home about?
Oh, my gosh.
Just one finish inside the top 20 over his last 8 races. The season is getting away from him rather quickly. Started 19th or worse in the only 2 next-gen starts he's had at Watkins Glen, but did parlay that into a 6th place finish last year and a 23rd the year before. Previously, though, he had been the model of consistency on this particular track with 5 straight races finishing 7th or better. We look at Denny Hamlin, track history here, as you alluded to at the top, came home 2nd last year after starting from the pole. Previous year ran outside the top 15 after a poor qualifying run. But interestingly enough, 5 top 5 finishes over his last 7 races here at Watkins Glen. And if there's a man who knows how to get a car around when it comes to tire wear, the 11 is someone that you can discount at your own peril.
Yeah, I think just starting with Chris Buescher, when you're reading off like 5th best during, 5th best finish during next gen era, kind of an 8th place car, probably properly priced at this 20 to 25-1 range. I think where you can derive some value from Chris Buescher would be just to have him be a solid run. He's a matchup guy. He's going to be consistent, but I don't see him going out there and pulling it and winning the race. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that maybe a little bit of a letdown for that team. They might take some chances to win the race, but I just don't see him doing it based on speed. And I thought he was a little bit better last year on these road courses than he's been this year. But I just think he's going to be more consistent. I don't like that win price. Marty Party, we moved on this number at 25-1. I was kind of shocked to kind of see that.
Just get me through the first lap. Just get me through the first lap. I don't want to have to relive Darlington in the Southern 500. Unbelievable.
He checks off the 2 boxes I think you need. I trust him as a road course racer. Absolutely. He also checks the box of tire wear. And you're just getting a great price on, I think, just an incredible driver. Are we going to be shocked if Martin Truex Jr. qualifies in the top 3 and looks good on Sunday? Absolutely not. That would not shock anybody. So I think
qualifying and looking good in the top 3 is one thing. Would I be shocked if he finishes in the top 3 the way he's going? Probably. But look, weirder things have happened than Martin Truex Jr. running well at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, that's his. It's almost like, well, how are they going to kind of screw up their day? That's just the way it's been for them. Murphy's Law, it's been something every week. But I still think there's speed in the race car, and I think that Truex wants to go out there and win a race. I think, he definitely has the ability to do it. And we're taking a price. It's not like we're taking a short number here, 25-1 on Martin Truex Jr. on a road course where there's anticipated fall off. Yeah, I'll take that every day of the week. Denny Hamlin.
Denny, the last guy, and then we can rapid fire through a couple of the other intriguing names that might be out there.
I think Denny, I don't like to necessarily win the race. I think he's going to be kind of similar to Chris Buescher. They just need a solid day, and it'll be interesting to see how this tire wear affects the stage breaks. I think that's another major unknown that we haven't touched on is, what drivers are going to be going for points, and we won't know that until we understand the tire fall off. So flipping stages, could hurt you or could help you at this point. We don't know it yet, and we don't know where everyone's thinking. We don't know what everyone's thinking when it comes to, their strategy. But Denny clearly had one last week, and it didn't play out. I anticipate him to qualify well. I can't see him holding off the field, but I do anticipate him to run solidly in the top 10 all day long.
Daniel Suarez, Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch, Austin Cindric, Joey Logano. Pick your poison. Any of those drivers that you'd like to touch on, share a little nugget in some capacity. The one that I will say, Joey Logano priced upwards of 60-1. Back-to-back top 10 finishes here. Third best average finish during the next-gen era. Fifth best total speed in the next-gen era. Sixth best drive rating. And fifth best average running position. Data that's relatively inconsistent with a guy priced at 60-1, but I'll let you pick out any of the drivers you wanted to include.
This is Joey Logano. I mean, let's just kind of piggyback what we were talking about earlier in the show. I mean, I don't think Joey should be 60. I think where's that price? Let's just say he looks bad. Where's he going to go? They're going to make him 80, 100-1. I just don't see that.
We've been there. We've seen that with the 22 earlier this season. But yeah, that's probably the worst. Even if he starts dead last and he's driving around with 3 tires. Yeah,
what if he qualifies in the top 10? I think he's got back-to-back top 10 finishes here. And he can be really aggressive with strategy. If, when it comes to flipping stages or he just wants to get the car out front, he's moving on. So I like Joey this week. I don't know. I have not played him in anything. I think I'd rather wait to see practice. But if you're looking for a flyer, having your money on Joey Logano in the playoffs is never a bad thing. Austin Cindric, gosh, I thought he was going to be better on road courses this year, but he just hasn't.
No bueno, kind sir.
Whenever there's fall off, I don't really trust Cindric that much with fall off. So I anticipate him maybe to qualify well. I don't like his win price. And I also think that they're sitting 19 points above the cut line. I think that they would be very happy with just a really solid run. So if he does look good in practice, maybe you could take him in matchups. Maybe there's a top 10 or a top 5 price, but to win the race, I think would be very difficult for this 2 team. Kyle Busch, I used to think that this was his favorite track when there was fall off in a different car. He's shown some speed. It's just, I don't know. Kyle, I like Kyle. I actually think this is an outright price that might be worth a nibble. We have not played it yet. The only one that we have played was Truex at 25. Because if Kyle goes out there and looks good in practice, and the biggest thing with him is need to qualify well. He just hasn't qualified well, so he's going to have to work his way up through the field, and that's just been a little bit of a struggle. So we'll see. This is one of those guys where I think Kyle Busch and Joey Logano, if they unload, we could see a massive price reduction on both of those guys. And they're both pretty cheap. I think Kyle Busch is around 40-1, Logano 60. And how about Kyle Busch's top 10 price? So he's 40-1 to win. And
don't even get me started.
DraftKings minus 200 top 10. For those of you guys listening, don't play that. Kyle Busch minus 200 top 10 at this point in the week is a little bit of maybe overprotection at that point. So that math doesn't make sense.
No.
So someone clearly must have hit that they flinched to move that number. But yeah, 40-1 to win and minus 200 top 10. Go figure.
Pretty wild to see, but nothing surprises me sometimes in these NASCAR betting markets that are out there, especially the derivatives, top 3s, top 5s, top 10s. And it's why we always tell you, our loyal guys and girls out there listening to the Stay Green podcast, shop.
Kyle's 12-1 on DraftKings. That's why.
12-1 to win the race.
Kyle Busch is 12-1 to win the race at DraftKings. Do you have Superbook pulled up right now?
I
Or
can
can you get it
pull
up?
Yeah,
But
I
that's
mean,
just
this is always great
I
podcasting when we try
well,
and
no,
go
but
through
I
and
can talk
look
more
for
about
numbers.
Kyle Busch. I used to love Kyle Busch at this
He's
track.
40. He's currently 40-1 at Superbook, and I'll actually pull up Circa at the same time as you continue to talk about Kyle Busch.
Yeah, I this was one of Kyle's best tracks, in my opinion. I remember specifically him having the best car multiple times, and he had to go to the rear with like 25 laps to go, and he still almost ran everybody down. So if his car is good and they were able to unload fast, I think Kyle Busch could be dangerous. But make sure you're price shopping. The 40-1 versus the 12-1, those are it's a massive difference. So
45-1 actually at Circa right now as we record on Wednesday night. The other thing to keep in mind too with Kyle that I always think is interesting is with maybe the extended practice time, the driver of the 8 car will be able to dial in a little bit more effectively. He's the first one to tell you more track time helped him out, and part of the reason he was winning all those races way back when is the dude was racing trucks, he was racing Xfinity.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
yeah,
we will see if that pays dividends. Green, white, checker flag on stage 2. And going to remind you again to follow Chris on social media at Chris Werme 15. I'm Todd Fuhrman. You can follow me there. And for all things Bet the Board related, be sure to follow the podcast at Bet the Board Pod. So Wormsers, we get to stage 3. Quick playoff reset. When we look at some of the numbers, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, all those drivers basically 5-1 on the low end, upwards of 7 if you shop around. Joey Logano's number shortened some, but look, I don't see any reason to jump in on any of these guys with 1 playoff race down, 9 to go. Nobody, in my opinion, has drifted out far enough. Chase Briscoe at most books still shorter than what the 200-1 that we took, and that was when he didn't have a 20-plus point deficit to the playoff cut line. As far as looking at some of the other drivers that are out there, I mean, Harrison Burton and Martin Truex Jr. also 16 or more points below the cut line. They got some work to do. Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs need good finishes because they're barely in the playoffs right now. So a lot of shuffling that's going to take place, but rare this far out that you find a number that you go, wait, I have to jump on this driver now. Typically, you'll get better prices going into an elimination race at Bristol.
Yeah, these prices are funny. It was sad that the first car out was our 200-1 in Briscoe, but I think ultimately it is going to come down to one of these favorites that are going to win. And you still have Larson at 4-1, Bell at 4-1, Hamlin at 4.5-1, and Hamlin's just 2 points to the good. And you these things can get squirrely in a heartbeat. So I think right now you're just kind of sitting tight. I think the X factor this weekend will be the tire fall off and who gets aggressive with trying to get stage points. Can you stay out, win a stage or finish second or third, pick up some stage points, and then restart knowing you have 3 or 4 lap fresher tires and able to actually use that to an advantage once they drop the green for the next stage. So, man, we're going to find out a lot of information at this practice because I think that we just don't know. And anything can happen. Someone could unload fast, or there's cars that could be good on the short run that fall off, or there's could be guys that are average on the short run and they're good on the long run. So I think at this point, we're just kind of sitting back. I'm definitely entertained to see what happens with Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. Just guys that you didn't anticipate to be just barely up on the cut line. So that's why you got to go out there and run the race. And I don't think nothing's a given at this point.
The good thing is I pull up the weather forecast right now. Of course, we're at Wednesday. We know everything is subject to change. It looks like sun in the forecast, no minimal chances of precipitation because if we don't get that practice session on Saturday, I think you're going to have a lot of drivers that get pissed off. And more importantly, because I don't care as much about them as I do our handicapping ability, we're not going to get a data point that we can use to potentially turn a profit. So fingers crossed that the weather gods smile kindly upon the 2+ mile road course at Watkins Glen to give us a practice session that we can apply to some of our handicapping and race day matchups. So
yeah, let's not forget. We have Bristol coming up. It's elimination. We had cording on tires. The cars were lasting 30 laps. So so much can happen in these next couple of weeks. I think I guess I'm hoping that there's not cording because I don't like to see kind of a funky race like that. Especially as a cutoff race, but usually wrecks at Bristol are usually terminal. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this week and how just these stage breaks and who goes after points and who's just kind of happy with a Denny Hamlin type 2020. A lot can change.
Yeah, I mean, there is a number of things that are going to go haywire just when you think you've got a firm grasp on predicting the unpredictable. That's what the NASCAR playoffs lend themselves to. So we'll wave the checkered flag and put a bow on our preview for Watkins Glen. But before we get out of Dodge in one piece, Wormser, it's best bet portion of the program. And you've kind of tipped your hand at a couple of the drivers you were looking at. Not quite sure if you want to take folks to a derivative market, a head-to-head matchup. And just for the record, as we shop around here on a Wednesday, AJ Allmendinger, $1.35 favorite over Michael McDowell at a national book.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of value. I don't know that we're going to play that, but I guess I liked him at a minus 115 if it was a pick on there, but minus 135 is probably properly priced. I don't see McDowell closing the favorite. If I don't see that happening at all, but I'm going to stick with stick with a top 10 market. I'm going to go with a guy named Denny Hamlin.
Never heard of him.
Yep. Never heard of him. I think Denny gets a solid run this weekend. I trust him enough on road courses. I certainly think that this is a better road course for him than the super technical ones like Sonoma. And he's got speed in his race car week in and week out. He's qualified well. I just think that this plus 110 is a good price on this 11 car.
I might be the degenerate monkey out there that decides, you know what, we'll take the even money at 10-1 and try and ladder up with a top 3 and a top 5, hoping to catch lightning in a bottle with prices approaching 10-1 on the 11 car to finish there. We know he'll qualify well. At least we're led to believe that'll be the case. If he can start up front, most likely he can keep it up front.
Let's say that there is 5 seconds of tire wear. Like, who do you trust to hang on to their tires? Who do you trust to maybe give up a spot or two to be good on the long run? So I think Hamlin is in a good spot, and I like that price at plus 110.
He's not driving the sports clips scheme, is he? Because we know if he's in that scheme, he can't win a cup race. So we may have to try and check.
Yeah, I've never looked up a scheme. Like, I've never handicapped that. I don't even know where they post those. Like, where do you find I
feel like that's something that you get.
I don't think he's in the sport clip.
That's what you get on the Bob Pockris side, but we'll figure that out. Not going to factor into our handicapping by any stretch of the imagination, but just wanted to bring that up. Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? What time can we expect the pre-race poll on Sunday when you're back in the home office?
Oh, gosh. What time is the race on Sunday?
These are the kind of things that you're supposed to do a little bit of preparation before you show up and just flip on a mic and just start spouting off nuggets.
Well, for one, Denny Hamlin is in a FedEx car this week. Okay, so
all right, so he can ship it then.
Yeah, exactly. He can ship that top 10 bet. So the pre-race poll will be at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 o'clock Eastern. That will be the pre-race poll. So.
That's good to know, and it is an invaluable resource for those folks looking for a little bit more handicapping knowledge as you get closer to race day once we have all of that practice data. And barring something unforeseen, I know it's a busy NFL Sunday, we will get up a race day best bet. I'm sure there'll be an opportunity for us to find something in the market that isn't properly priced.
If there's fall off, we're going to have some action. I'm just worried about, like I said, the uniform fall off. That, kind of we saw at Darlington where everyone was falling off at the same rate. It was hard to make passes. Fingers crossed, road course racing with this new package has not been stellar, but if Goodyear does bring a tire that falls off and there's some setups that just hang on longer, we could see some passing late in runs, which I think would be fantastic.
Always looking for a change, and a tire compound that's a little bit unique can often create opportunities for not only drivers, but handicappers as well. Again, Chris, thanks for taking time out of your busy boys trip. We'll look forward to the pre-race poll. Best of luck to all you guys and girls out there with all of your pre-week and race day investments as they pertain to Watkins Glen and any big picture wagers you may make in NASCAR. But most importantly, come Sunday afternoon with a Denny Hamlin top 10 ticket in hand, we'll see you at the window.